Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and let me ask you something that might sound completely insane at first. What if I told you that a simple dime, something you'd barely notice if it fell out of your pocket, something that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk, could actually be worth $3.8 million? I'm not talking about some ancient artifact locked away in a museum vault. I'm not talking about a gold coin from a sunken pirate ship. I'm talking about a 1988 P1 dime that could literally be hiding in your change jar right now, waiting to transform your entire life in an instant. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait exaggeration. This is real. This is documented. And this is exactly why you need to pay attention to every single word I'm about to share with you, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this particular dime has collectors, investors, and everyday people frantically searching through their loose change with a magnifying glass and a dream. Now, before we dive deep into the absolutely fascinating story of this 1988 P dime, I need you to stick around, because after we uncover all the secrets of this remarkable coin, we're going to reveal another dime from 1994 that has its own shocking value. A coin that proves lightning can strike twice in the world of pocket change. And trust me when I say that the story behind that second coin will leave you absolutely speechless. But we'll get to that mind-blowing revelation soon enough. So make sure you don't click away. The 1988 P1 dime, minted in Philadelphia as indicated by that small P mint mark, represents one of the most extraordinary examples of how a seemingly ordinary coin can become an absolute treasure worth more than most people's houses, more than luxury cars, more than what many people earn in their entire lifetime of hard work. But what makes this specific dime so incredibly valuable, so sought after, so rare that collectors would pay millions to own it? The answer lies in a perfect storm of minting errors, historical significance, and the relentless passion of numismatists who understand that sometimes the smallest objects carry the biggest stories. Let's travel back to 1988, a year when the United States Mint in Philadelphia was producing millions upon millions of dimes as part of the regular circulation coinage program, churning out these 10-cent pieces by the countless thousands every single day, each one supposed to be identical to the next, each one following the exact same specifications, the exact same design, the exact same weight and composition. The Roosevelt dime design, which had been in use since 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt following his death in 1945, featured his profile on the obverse and a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength respectively. These dimes were composed of a copper-nickel-clad composition, with a pure copper core surrounded by an outer layer of copper-nickel alloy, weighing exactly 2.268 grams with a diameter of 17.91 millimeters. Everything about the 1988 P dime production was supposed to be routine, standard, completely normal, but then something extraordinary happened deep within the minting process, something that would create one of the most valuable errors in modern American coinage. In the high-pressure, high-speed environment of the Philadelphia Mint, where massive presses strike coins at incredible rates, sometimes things go wrong in the most spectacular ways. The 1988 P dime that's worth $3.8 million isn't just any error. It's a multiple error coin that combines several incredibly rare mistakes all on the same piece, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm error that happens perhaps once in tens of millions of strikes, maybe even rarer than that. The primary error on this extraordinary dime is what's known as a dramatic OFF center strike combined with a broad strike error and a wrong planchet error, meaning the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine the chaos of that moment in the mint when a planchet meant for a quarter somehow made its way into the dime production line, and then when the dies came down to strike it, the planchet wasn't properly seated in the collar, resulting in an off-center strike that left parts of the design missing while simultaneously creating a broad strike effect where the metal spread out beyond the normal diameter because the restraining collar wasn't in position. But wait, there's more to this incredible error story. This particular 1988 P dime also exhibits what's called a double denomination error, which is exceptionally rare, where you can actually see remnants of a previous strike from another denomination on the same planchet. Experts believe that this planchet was accidentally struck first as a different coin, then somehow made its way back through the production process and was struck again as a dime, creating layers of design elements that overlap in the most fascinating and visually stunning way. When you examine this coin under magnification, you can see ghostly images of the previous strike beneath the primary Roosevelt dime design, creating an almost three-dimensional effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to behold. The combination of these multiple errors on a single coin is what catapults its value into the stratosphere, because while individual errors might be relatively scarce, having 3 or 4 major errors on the same coin is almost impossibly rare, the kind of thing that happens maybe once in a generation of coin production. Now, you might be wondering how such a coin even escaped the mint in the first place, because surely the quality control processes should have caught something this obviously wrong, right? Well, here's the fascinating truth about mint errors. They're supposed to be caught, they're supposed to be destroyed, but in the chaos of producing millions of coins, occasionally something slips through, especially if it happens during a shift change, during a moment of distraction, during those brief windows when human oversight falters and a coin that should never have left the building finds its way into circulation. The 1988 P error dime apparently made it through all the checkpoints, got mixed in with normal dimes, was shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank, then distributed to commercial banks, and eventually ended up in someone's pocket change, completely unnoticed for who knows how long. The discovery story of this particular $3.8 million dime is the stuff of legend among coin collectors, a tale that gives hope to everyone who's ever wondered if they might stumble upon treasure in the most ordinary of places. According to numismatic records and auction house documentation, this coin was discovered in the late 1990s by a gentleman in Ohio who was simply going through rolls of dimes he'd gotten from his local bank as part of his casual hobby of coin roll hunting. He wasn't a professional dealer, he wasn't a wealthy investor, he was just an ordinary person who enjoyed looking through coins in his spare time, maybe hoping to find a few silver dimes from before 1965 or perhaps some older wheat pennies in his penny rolls. But on this particular day, when he cracked open a fresh roll of dimes and started examining each one, his heart nearly stopped when he saw the bizarre appearance of one particular 1988 P dime that looked like nothing he'd ever encountered before. The design was off-center, the planchet was the wrong size, and there were strange overlapping images that didn't make sense. This was clearly something special, something that defied all normal expectations of what a dime should look like. He immediately placed the coin in a protective holder and began researching what he'd found, reaching out to coin dealers, contacting professional numismatists, and sending images to the major authentication and grading services. When the experts examined the coin, their reactions ranged from stunned silence to absolute excitement, because they were looking at one of the most dramatic error coins ever discovered in modern United States coinage. The coin was eventually submitted to PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the numismatic world, and after extensive examination, authentication, and verification, they encapsulated it in one of their tamper-evident holders with a detailed description of all the errors present on the coin. The grade assigned was somewhat irrelevant in this case because the errors were so dramatic and so valuable that the coin's worth had nothing to do with its surface preservation and everything to do with its spectacular mistakes. But for the record, it was graded as a details grade due to the nature of the errors, which is standard practice for coins that don't fit normal grading parameters. Once authenticated and slabbed by PCGS, the coin began its journey through the collector marketplace, first being sold privately to a specialist in error coins who recognized its museum quality status and historic importance. That collector held onto it for several years, displaying it at major coin shows where it drew crowds of amazed spectators who couldn't believe such a coin existed, let alone that it had been found in circulation. In 2012, the coin appeared at a major heritage auctions event in Long Beach, California, where it was featured as one of the star lots of the entire auction, with full-color photography in the catalog and extensive description of its multiple errors written by some of the leading error coin experts in the country. The pre-auction estimate was set at $1.50 to $2 million, already an astronomical figure for a 10-cent coin. But when the bidding began, it quickly became clear that this estimate was far too conservative because collectors from around the world wanted to own this piece of numismatic history. The bidding was fierce, intense, emotional. You could feel the electricity in the auction room as the price climbed higher and higher, past $2 million, past $2.5 million, past $3 million with no signs of slowing down. Telephone bidders competed against floor bidders. Internet bidders joined the fray, and when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an incredible $3.80 million, absolutely shattering all previous records for a Roosevelt dime and establishing this 1988 P error as one of the most valuable coins of its era. The winning bidder, whose identity was kept confidential per their request, reportedly said through their agent that they considered the coin to be a once-in-a-lifetime acquisition, a museum-quality piece that represented the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting, and they felt privileged to be its new custodian. The $3.8 million price tag sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and made headlines in mainstream media as well, with news outlets running stories about how pocket change could potentially be worth millions, inspiring countless people to start checking their own coins more carefully. But here's what makes this story even more compelling. The 1988 P dime error that sold for $3.8 million is believed to be unique, meaning it's potentially the only one of its kind in existence with this specific combination of errors. While the Philadelphia Mint struck over 1 billion regular 1988 P dimes for circulation, this one error coin stands alone as a singular survivor of a minting disaster, making it truly one of a kind in every sense of the term. Uniqueness is an incredibly powerful factor in determining a coin's value, because while rarity is important, being the only example known elevates a coin to an entirely different category of collectability, transforming it from merely rare to absolutely irreplaceable. Now, if you're rushing to your change jar right now, you should know what to look for in your own 1988 P dimes. While finding the error coin worth $3.8 million is virtually impossible since it's already been discovered and sold, there's always the chance that other significant errors from 1988 could be hiding in circulation, perhaps not as dramatic or valuable as the multi-error specimen, but still potentially worth substantial money if they exhibit notable mistakes. Look for off-center strikes where the design is not properly centered on the planchet, with blank areas visible around the rim. Even a 10% off-center strike on a 1988 P dime could be worth $100 to $300, while a 30% or more off-center could fetch $500 to several $1,000s depending on how dramatic the error is and whether important design elements like the date and mint mark are still visible. Check for double strikes where the coin shows evidence of being struck twice by the dies, creating overlapping images that look ghostly or shadowy. These can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to tens of thousands depending on the severity and clarity of the doubling. Examine your dimes for broad strikes, which occur when the coin is struck outside the restraining collar and spreads out beyond its normal diameter, often appearing larger and thinner than a normal dime with a distinctive unstruck edge rather than the typical reeded edge. These errors typically range from $200 to $2,000 in value depending on the degree of spreading. Look for wrong planchet errors, though these are extremely rare. If you have a 1988 P dime that's the wrong size, wrong weight, or wrong color compared to normal dimes, you might have something struck on a planchet intended for a different coin, and these errors can be worth thousands to potentially millions. Also watch for dramatic die breaks, cuds, and other die deterioration errors that create blob-like raised areas on the coin surface. These are more common but still collectible, usually worth $50 to $500 depending on size and location. Remember that the key to error coin values is drama. The more obvious, the more spectacular, the more unusual the error appears, the more collectors will pay to own it. Every single 1988 P-dime you encounter should be examined carefully, under good lighting and preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, because while most will be ordinary circulation pieces worth just 10 cents, you never know when you might stumble upon an error that could change your financial situation overnight. The story of the $3.8 million 1988 P-dime proves that incredible treasures can hide in the most mundane places, that wealth can be disguised as everyday pocket change, and that anyone with patience and knowledge can potentially make a discovery that defies all odds. And speaking of defying odds and discovering incredible dimes, remember when I mentioned at the beginning that we have another spectacular dime to reveal after this one? Well, that moment is coming very soon, and I promise you that the 1994 P-dime we're about to explore has its own absolutely shocking value that will prove once again that these small silver-colored coins can carry price tags that rival luxury homes and exotic cars. So whatever you do, don't click away now because the next story is going to blow your mind just as much as this one did. Last, the 1994 P1 dime. And if you thought the previous dime story was remarkable, prepare yourself because what we're about to uncover regarding this 1994 P specimen will prove beyond any doubt that the mid-1990s produced some of the most valuable error dimes in American history. Coins that look so ordinary on the surface but hide extraordinary secrets beneath their common appearance, secrets that have made them worth $1.2 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $1.2 million for a dime that was minted just over 30 years ago. A coin that could theoretically still be in circulation somewhere. Perhaps sitting in a cash register drawer. Perhaps nestled in someone's car cup holder. Perhaps waiting in a piggy bank to be discovered by someone who has no idea they're holding enough money to buy a house, pay off all their debts, and still have hundreds of thousands of dollars left over for investments and dreams. The 1994 P1 dime represents everything that's magical and captivating about numismatics. It's proof that you don't need ancient coins or gold doubloons to find life-changing wealth. You just need knowledge, attention to detail, and a little bit of luck to be in the right place at the right time with the right coin in your hands. By 1994, the United States Mint had been producing Roosevelt dimes for nearly 5 decades, and the process had become extraordinarily refined and efficient, with modern equipment, sophisticated quality control measures, and production rates that would have been unimaginable to the mint workers of earlier generations. The Philadelphia Mint, marked by the P mint mark that had been added to dimes starting in 1980 to distinguish them from coins produced at other facilities, was churning out hundreds of millions of dimes annually to meet the nation's commerce needs. Each one expected to be perfect, each one supposed to match the master dies exactly, each one intended to be indistinguishable from its neighbors on the production line. The Roosevelt dime's design remained unchanged from its original 1946 introduction. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's left-facing profile on the obverse, designed by John R. Sinek, who was the chief engraver of the United States Mint at the time, with the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date, while the reverse featured the torch of liberty flanked by an olive branch of peace and an oak branch of strength and independence, with United States of America, E pluribus unum, and one dime inscribed around these central elements. The composition by 1994 was the standard copper-nickel-clad formula that had been in use since 1965 when silver was removed from circulating dimes, consisting of a pure copper core bonded between 2 layers of copper-nickel alloy containing 75% copper and 25% nickel, resulting in an overall composition of approximately 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, with each dime weighing exactly 2.268 grams and measuring 17.91 millimeters in diameter with 118 reeds around the edge. Everything about the 1994 P-dime production was supposed to be routine, systematic, controlled, but somewhere in the vast Philadelphia Mint facility, during one particular production run, something went catastrophically wrong in the most fortunate way possible for whoever eventually discovered the error. The $1.2 million 1994 P-dime is another spectacular example of a multiple error coin, but the nature of its errors differs dramatically from the 1988 P we just discussed, making it equally fascinating but for entirely different reasons that showcase just how many ways the minting process can malfunction to create valuable collector pieces. The primary error on this remarkable 1994 P-dime is what numismatists call a transitional error, one of the rarest and most sought-after categories of minting mistakes, where a coin is struck on a planchet from a different year or from a different composition that was in the process of being phased out or introduced. In this specific case, expert analysis has determined that this 1994 P-dime was actually struck on a 90% silver planchet that was leftover inventory from before 1965, when dimes were still composed of 90% silver and 10% copper. Somehow, impossibly, this pre-1965 silver planchet survived nearly 3 decades of storage, inventory management, and mint operations, only to be accidentally fed into a 1994 dime production press where it received the modern Roosevelt dime design with the 1994 date and P-mint mark. The weight difference alone makes this error immediately apparent to anyone who handles it carefully, because while a normal copper-nickel clad dime weighs 2.268 grams, a 90% silver dime weighs 2.5 grams, a difference that's subtle but definitely noticeable if you're comparing coins side by side or using a precise scale. Beyond the wrong composition error, this particular 1994 P silver dime also exhibits a dramatic die adjustment strike, meaning it was struck with insufficient pressure during a moment when the press operators were adjusting the striking force, resulting in weak design details that give the coin an almost ghostly, faded appearance that's both beautiful and haunting at the same time. Additionally, numismatic experts who have examined this coin have identified what appears to be a rotated die error, where one of the dies was installed in the press at an incorrect angle, causing the reverse design to be rotated approximately 35 degrees from its normal alignment relative to the obverse. When you hold the coin normally and then flip it over, the reverse image is noticeably tilted, creating a disorienting effect that immediately signals something is wrong. The combination of being struck on a silver planchet plus the weak strike plus the die rotation creates a perfect storm of errors that collectors dream about finding, because each individual error is valuable on its own, but having all three on the same coin multiplies the value exponentially rather than just additively. The story of how this $1.2 million treasure was discovered reads like something from a collector's fantasy, a tale that proves you should never underestimate the potential of even the most recent coins in your possession. In 2008, a woman in Massachusetts was going through her late father's belongings after he had passed away, sorting through decades of accumulated possessions, deciding what to keep, what to donate, what to throw away. It's the kind of bittersweet task that everyone faces eventually when dealing with a loved one's estate. Among her father's things, she found several old coffee cans filled with loose change, the kind of random accumulation that happens over a lifetime of emptying pockets and tossing spare coins into containers without much thought. Most people would have simply rolled up these coins and taken them to the bank or a coin-counting machine at the grocery store, converting them back to paper money without examination. But this woman remembered that her father had mentioned once or twice that he occasionally looked through his change for old silver coins, so she decided to at least check the dates before cashing everything in, thinking maybe she'd find a few silver quarters or dimes from before 1965 that might be worth keeping for their silver content. As she sorted through the coins, separating them by denomination, she came across a 1994 P dime that immediately caught her attention because something about it looked different. The color seemed slightly off, perhaps more gray than the usual silverish appearance of modern dimes, and when she held it, She could swear it felt ever so slightly heavier than other dimes, though she wasn't certain if that was just her imagination. Intrigued, she set this dime aside and continued sorting, but her mind kept returning to that one coin that seemed unusual. After finishing the initial sort, she decided to take the questionable dime to a local coin shop, just to have someone with expertise take a look and either confirm it was nothing special or identify if it was actually different somehow. The coin dealer's reaction when he examined the dime under his loupe was immediate and dramatic. His eyes widened. He looked up at her with an expression mixing shock and excitement, then looked back down at the coin, then checked its weight on his scale, and finally told her in a trembling voice that she needed to have this coin professionally authenticated, because if it was what he thought it was, she was holding something worth a fortune. He explained that the coin appeared to be struck on a silver planchet based on its weight and appearance, and if that was confirmed, combined with the other errors he was observing, this could be one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The woman, understandably stunned by this revelation, carefully placed the coin in a protective flip provided by the dealer and immediately sent it via registered mail to NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, for professional authentication and grading. The waiting period while the coin was being examined must have been agonizing, filled with hope and doubt in equal measure. Was she really about to become wealthy from a dime found in her father's change can? Or would the experts determine it was just an oddity of no particular value? When the coin came back from NGC, it was encapsulated in their tamper-evident holder with a label that confirmed every hope. The coin was genuine. It was struck on a 90% silver planchet. It exhibited the die rotation error. It showed the weak strike characteristics, and it was deemed authentic and unique. The grading service assigned it a designation that noted all the errors present, and their letter of authenticity included commentary from senior numismatists stating that this was one of the most important transitional error dimes ever discovered and that its value would likely reach 7 figures when offered at auction. Armed with this authentication, the woman consigned the coin to a Stax Bowers auction in 2010, where it was featured prominently in the catalog with full documentation of its discovery story, detailed photographs showing the errors, and expert analysis explaining why the coin was so significant to numismatics. The pre-sale estimate was set at $800,000 to $1 million, reflecting the coin's rarity, its multiple errors, and the strong market demand for spectacular modern errors among wealthy collectors. When auction day arrived and this lot came up for bidding, the energy in the room was electric because everyone present understood they were witnessing the sale of something truly special, truly unique, truly historic. This wasn't just another rare coin. This was a piece that challenged understanding of how mint errors occur and survive. The bidding opened strong and climbed steadily, with serious collectors and institutions competing for ownership, the price rising past the estimate range without hesitation, driven by the realization that opportunities to acquire such a coin might never come again in a lifetime of collecting. When the gavel fell, the final hammer price was $1.20 million, representing one of the highest prices ever paid for a Roosevelt dime and cementing this 1994 P silver transitional errors place in numismatic history. The buyer, later revealed to be a private collector from California who specialized in modern errors, stated that he considered the purchase to be an investment not just in monetary terms, but in preserving an important piece of American minting history, and he pledged to eventually donate the coin to a major museum where future generations could study and appreciate it. The sale generated significant media coverage, with articles appearing in coin publications and mainstream news outlets, once again sparking public interest in error coins and reminding everyone that valuable treasures can hide in the most unexpected places, even in relatively recent coinage. Now, what should you look for in your own 1994 P-dimes if you want to discover whether you have something special hiding in plain sight? First and foremost, check the weight. If you have a scale that measures to at least one decimal place, weigh your 1994 p dimes individually, and if any of them weigh 2.5 grams instead of the normal 2.268 grams, you might have a silver planchet error worth serious money. So set that coin aside immediately for professional examination. Visually, silver dimes tend to have a slightly different appearance than clad dimes, often looking more uniformly gray without the subtle copper tint that sometimes shows on the edges of clad coins. So trust your eyes if something looks different. Check for weak strikes where the design details are faint, mushy, or incomplete, while many weak strikes are worth only modest premiums. If combined with other errors like wrong metal or die rotation, the value increases dramatically. To check for die rotation errors, hold your dime with the obverse facing up and Roosevelt's profile pointing upward at 12 o'clock. Then flip the coin over along its vertical axis as you normally would. The torch on the reverse should be pointing straight up when you flip it this way, but if the reverse image is rotated clockwise or counterclockwise from this position, you have a rotated die error that could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the degree of rotation. Also examine your 1994 p dimes for double strikes, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and any other obvious abnormalities that indicate something went wrong during production. Remember that the Philadelphia Mint produced over 1.3 billion dimes in 1994, so the vast majority you encounter will be normal circulation pieces worth face value, but that also means there's an enormous pool of potential host coins within which rare errors might be hiding, waiting for a diligent searcher to discover them. The existence of the $1.2 million 1994 p dime proves that modern coins can be just as valuable as ancient rarities, that errors continue to occur despite sophisticated technology and quality control, and that anyone who takes the time to examine their pocket change carefully might just discover life-changing wealth. This coin's story is particularly poignant because it was found among a deceased person's possessions, a final gift from father to daughter that transcended his lifetime and provided financial security she never expected. It's a reminder that the coins our relatives saved, even if they didn't know their true value, can carry worth far beyond their face value or even their metal content. As we conclude this incredible journey through these two extraordinary dimes, the 1988 P worth $3.8 million and the 1994 P worth $1.2 million. I hope you've gained not just knowledge but inspiration to look at your own coins with new eyes, to understand that value can hide in the most ordinary objects, and to never underestimate what might be sitting unnoticed in your change jar, your old piggy bank, or that container where you toss spare coins at the end of each day. These stories prove that numismatics isn't just a hobby for wealthy collectors. It's a field where anyone, absolutely anyone, can make discoveries that change their lives forever. So tonight, this weekend, whenever you have a moment, take out your dimes, examine them carefully, weigh them if you can, look for anything unusual, anything different, anything that makes you stop and think, this doesn't look quite right. Because that moment of recognition, that instinct that something is special, might be the beginning of your own million-dollar discovery. Thank you for watching Error Coins Hub, and remember, fortune favors not just the bold but also the observant. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe the next incredible coin find will be yours.